GCOM office, GCOM Center, to tell us and to brief us on what transpired here this morning.
Let me try and begin at the beginning. The first thing that happened was they changed the roadblocks from Hatfield Street to, what's that road?
Avenue Republic?
Avenue Republic. So there was a lot of confusion there. They would not, so we were all redirected to the Avenue Republic entrance. There the international media and domestic, not media or observers, including myself, were kept standing in the sun for almost half an hour before we were allowed to be identified as the correct persons to visit. They then took us through a back door they removed from the original room in which the verification and counting was done, which you're all familiar with, and took us to a back door in what was essentially a sealed off room. Mr. Mengo then began the process by saying to us in a very dictatorial manner, in my opinion, that he was fully in charge and that the Chief Justice had authorized that he must take control and only he could direct these proceedings. He would not allow any intervention or comment from any of the observers, domestic or international. He then said that he would be proceeding from statements of poll which were allegedly present in the room, and that he would proceed to continue the process. A number of the party representatives pointed out that they would like an agreement that if he was working from the statements of poll, that on each occasion there is a variation, that they would stop and check. He refused to do that. He told us all that we could not have any electronic equipment with us. And he cited a law which has to do with secrecy, and in fact, I'm advised, was totally irrelevant to the proceedings. We appealed to him that we had computers, we had laptops, we had information in our phones, and that we could not properly proceed and follow unless we were allowed to use electronic equipment. He finally gave in on that point. There were no facilities in place for using any electronic equipment. There were no tables on which people could rest their computers. We asked for the intervention of proper facilities. We asked for a pause while we brought tables into the room. He refused point blank to allow that. He then said that he was going to continue with the count. The immediate problem that arose was that he could not reconcile the point from which you would begin to continue, because he could not provide the data for that. That resulted in quite a dispute until he finally agreed to revert to beginning the entire count from beginning. At that point in time, as he was about to proceed, the representative of APNU came into the room Carol Joseph is her name, and I'm informed that she was from Region 5. She began to scream and shout in an entirely abusive manner, hurling insults at everyone in the room, and screaming at the returning officer to begin the process. Must start now, must start now. She virtually directed the RO as to how to proceed. He immediately reversed himself on her directions from agreeing to begin at the beginning to go back to a continuation. That, of course, has problems because unless you can reconcile the precise data from which to begin, you can't do a proper calculation. He then directed one of his staff to start the process. It was immediately apparent that she was beginning from a spreadsheet and not from the statements of poll. She read at an enormous rate. It was absolutely impossible to follow her. On each occasion that she read out figures that we were able to follow, it became absolutely apparent that the figures that she was reading out did not match any of the statements of poll in the possession of the party representatives or indeed the observers who had them. Not only did they not match, but there were massive variations. On each statement of poll that we were able to make a comparison, there was a huge variation. A variation in which votes assigned to APNU ranged from about 70 to 100 more votes, and votes deducted from the PPP ranged from about 30 to 70 on every single statement of poll that we were able to make comparisons. This was becoming an absolute farce, because when the party representatives sought to stop and point out the position of the returning officer was, make a note of all these variations. We will deal with them at the end. It was impossible to make a note, even if you wanted to agree to that procedure. And they were at that point in time not working from the statements of poll as required. But at the very beginning of this, it was pointed out that the chairman, when she agreed to suspend yesterday's activity, and that was incidentally at a proposal which I introduced and asked her to do, and which she agreed to with the support of all of us there, she said to us very clearly that she needed to be fully advised of the rulings of the Chief Justice. And the only way she could properly advise herself was to have those rulings in writing over the signature of the Chief Justice, and that she would resume when she was properly advised, and that she would come back to us and speak. The chairman never appeared. When we asked for her appearance, we were told repeatedly by the returning officer that he was in charge, that he was authorized by the Chief Justice to take charge, that he would direct this exercise, and he would not listen to any attempts by any of the party representatives, and indeed some of the observers, to bring him to a point of reason. It was clear that this was becoming an absolute farce and totally unrepresentative of the election results. At that point in time, Mr. Ben, one of the commissioners, intervened and attempted to speak as a commissioner. He was shouted down by the APNU representative to whom I've already referred. So that this then became a screaming match between Mr. Ben and the APNU lady. Clearly, the entire process was descending into chaos and a farce. At which point in time, I think this was at about 10:30, approximately that time, the diplomatic community, having realized that this was a complete farce, got up and left. Shortly thereafter, I left when I realized that I was wasting my time being present there. But I have to say this, in all my life, considerable life and career, in and out of politics in this country, I have never seen such a barefaced, ugly, and deliberate attempt to rig an election. Yes, I have seen attempts, and I'm aware of attempts where elections were rigged, but not in this kind of manner, not in this ugly, barefaced, obvious manner. It was utterly disgusting. Jerry.
Thank you very much, Kit. We have a number of observers in the room. I think there are observers from AmCham, the Chamber of Commerce, the Bar Association, and the Private Sector Commission. And we also work very closely with all of the international observers. And it's exceptionally concerning when all of the observers, both local and foreign, with one voice, is echoing exactly what Kit Nascimento just related to you. For me, as an observer, I want to reconfirm what all of the observers have said, including the international observers, that in the first part of these elections that we observed, these elections were well run. It was fair, it was free. The voting that happened on Monday the 2nd, up to the point in time of the closing of the poll, the counting of the ballots at the box, and even the declaration of the 9 regions, there was no objections or concerns raised by any of the observers. In fact, up to the time that they counted 50%, approximately 50% of Region 4, there was no problem. But so the last part of these elections, which will tell us who really won these elections, what is the real results, is now in this quagmire of confusion and chaos. For the Private Sector Commission and the private sector that has been suffering enormous economic impact and loss since the preparation of these elections, this is exceptionally depressing for the business community, that we cannot abide by the rule of law, and which is very essential to investor confidence and business development and the stability of our country. When we saw the entire ABC ambassadors, the United States ambassador, the UK High Commissioner, the Canadian High Commissioner, and the European Union ambassador walked out of the room and walked away from that process, we knew there and then that the international community have given up on that process and the credibility and integrity of that process. And we are hoping, beyond hope as we speak here, that the chairperson of GCOM, retired Justice Singh, will dig deep into her heart and her professionalism and her integrity and rescue Guyana from what is clearly a farce going on at GCOM at the moment. I understand that the court just ruled on the contempt case, just ruled, give instructions. I understand that they have instructed the parties to meet in some kind of mediation, and I'm hoping that that discussion is going on as we speak. And the first thing that mediation will do is stop the farce that is going on at GCOM right now. because that, by no stretch of anybody's imagination, could meet any form of comfort and give anybody confidence about these elections. Certainly not the local observers, certainly not a big part of this population, and certainly not the international community, not the OAS, not the Commonwealth Secretariat, not the European Union, not the Carter Center. None of the observers could walk away from this process believing that this was a credible elections. And we urge the parties that are meeting now in mediation to stop the process that is going on, that they are rushing. In fact, they are rushing through this process. Rushing through this process.
It was absolutely impossible for anyone to keep track of the numbers that they were.
They are rushing through this process to get to an end, so a result with fabricated numbers could be announced. And my fellow Guyanese and business leaders and business people, this is terrible for our country. And we just wanted to report this to you. We're now open to any questions.
Just before you ask questions, I did leave out one detail. I'm not sure how important it is, but at approximately 10:25, a marshal of the court came into the room and served a notice on Mr. Mengo.
So he left the room.
Mr. Mengo then stopped the process, and before he left the room, he said that he was appointing a duly appointed election clerk, quote and unquote, Miss Bob Cummings, to take over on his behalf, and the count kept on going at an enormous pace.
They are rushing through this process with any thought, any avenue to reconcile it, to bring some credibility to it.
Let me add this, that I was able to see a number of statements of polls that the parties themselves had in their possession, and these were statements of polls which they had obtained from GCOM itself. And on every one of them, there were those variations you heard me speak about earlier on. Every single one, without exception.
All right, so we'd like to open you to any questions.
You said you'd like him to stop the process from the work.
Well, the judge, from my reading of the media report on the contempt proceedings against Mr. Mingo, the judge instructed the parties to go to mediation. It means to sort it out themselves. But to sort this out themselves, they first of all need to stop the farce that is going on in GCOM. And then they need to establish a protocol of how they will move forward with this tabulation process. They need to establish how it will be done, and how it will be acceptable to people around the table. And if you read the law speaks to the fact that you must give the people in the room adequate facilities, and you must give them adequate information. Notwithstanding that our laws also give international observers the right, and I think the European Union wrote yesterday, based on that law, requesting GCOM to present their SOPs, and it seems that they are refusing to even obey that request at this time. And so, for us to continue, they need to stop this, and they need to agree, if there's any kind of mediation, on what an agreed process that could be agreed on as they move forward with this tabulation process on Region 4.
I would like to add a comment on that question.
This has been happening to just about every single SOP that they've called out up to now. Just about every single SOP that has been called out has been doctored, have fraudulent figures on board, and they've been reducing the PPP votes and adding it on to the APNU votes in massive amounts.
How many has been counted up to the point zero?
They've counted about 400 to 500 already in there. They're not really counting. They're not really counting. What they're doing is just reading. They're just reading from an SOP. They're just reading from a spreadsheet that is being hidden from an SOP. Thank you very much.
Janet. Hey, y'all get it. Come. Hey, y'all, let's start the man now. Jono, go.
Where is your vehicle, sir?
Right here. Guys, there you have it. All right, there you have it. So just to update everybody on what's going on, we just our ANUG representative just got out of Ashman's building, and what appears to be from our calculation is that on average about 100 votes has been added to all of the APNU AFC SOP numbers, and we're not sure the exact amount that has been subtracted from all of the PPP numbers, but they have been significantly reduced. All right, so these are fake SOPs that have now been produced. All right, and we are back to square one. We are going to a joint press conference now with all the parties to explain what has happened here today, the multiple legal action that's going to be taken. All of the options we have need to be laid out and strategized here, because well, we're coming down to a problem because as we speak right now, they're still in that building. GCOM is still in the building as we speak. GCOM is still in the building right now discussing, going over all the numbers. Sorry, we're a bit riled up. As you could tell, the crowd was a bit hostile just now. So let me put Jono back on.
And reducing the PPP section by at least 20 to 30 votes for every single statement of poll. So at the end of the day, there's going to be a massive fraud taking place inside there at this point in time. So right now, all the political parties have walked out except one. There's one left in there. There are about 8 international and local observers still in the building. The heads of government. This has been happening to just about every single SOP that they've called out up to now. Just about every single SOP that has been called out has been doctored, have fraudulent figures on board, and they've been reducing the PPP votes and adding it on to the APNU votes in massive amounts.
How many has been counted up to the point zero?
They've counted about 400 to 500 already in there. They're not really counting. They're not really counting. What they're doing is just reading. They're just reading from an SOP. They're just reading from a spreadsheet that is being hidden from an SOP. Thank you very much.
Janet.
Hey, y'all, let's start the man now. Let's start the man now. John, go. Where is your vehicle, sir?
Right here. Guys, there you have it. All right, there you have it. So just to update everybody on what's going on, we just our ANUG representative just got out of Ashman's building, and what appears to be from our calculation is that on average about 100 votes has been added to all of the APNU AFC SOP numbers, and we're not sure the exact amount that has been subtracted from all of the PPP numbers, but they have been significantly reduced. All right, so these are fake SOPs that have now been produced. All right, and we are back to square one. We are going to a joint press conference now with all the parties to explain what has happened here today, the multiple legal action that's going to be taken. All of the options we have need to be laid out and strategized here, because well, we're coming down to a problem because as we speak right now, they're still in that building. GCOM is still in the building as we speak. GCOM is still in the building right now discussing, going over all the numbers. Sorry, we're a bit riled up. As you can tell, the crowd was a bit hostile just now. So let me put Jono back on.
And reducing the PPP section by at least 20 to 30 votes for every single statement of poll. So at the end of the day, there's going to be a massive fraud taking place inside there at this point in time. So right now, all the political parties have walked out except one. There's one left in there. There are about 8 international and local observers still in the building. The heads of government, the heads of missions, the ABE heads of missions have all left. They walked out in protest. But we stayed to document certain things that were happening, because we must have documentation as to what has taken place. That fiasco that happened outside there with the media there, next to the media with the supporters, I want no part of that. That's not what ANUG is here about. That is not what ANUG is here about. They can behave the way they normally behave, but that's not ANUG. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Jabor, you're part of the ANUG team as well. Your thoughts on what you just saw?
Well, to be realistic, this is something that we've been expecting from the start of this situation. This is their only tactic that GCOM had left, and in order for them to be able to verify that result that they produced, in which the court ruled down that ruling, they had to produce these fake SOPs. And we have a problem right now where, as we speak, they are continuing the process, and what all of us are fearing at the moment is that we're going to get right back to square one, in which we need to fear that the GCOM head and commission is going to make an official declaration, and that's where this needs to be stopped, because that's our last stand. After that, but to be honest with you guys, proud about to get a little second. So we're going to head off and head to the press conference. All right. Alright guys, there you go. These are people that are getting... Guys, you can jump in. Sorry guys, I got a press conference and there's no police or security out here with us. So we'll get back to everybody soon. Thanks.
Is truly reflective and reflected in the results.
She didn't single out a methodology, but she said the SOPs had to be seen. That's what you understand.
SOP must be seen, observed by the parties.
And the parties present, she did.
And the parties present have their role at that process. And that is what we have been asking, struggling, fighting, and canvassing for. That's all. That's all. So what?
example, the work was done this morning?
Well, it was not done. I think the Chief Justice has made it clear that what transpired this morning did not accord with her order, did not comply with her order. So if they continue now along this line, I will have to report and put in the evidence before Monday and go to trial and let the course of justice take its natural journey, which will lead to imprisonment of those who are complicit in the violation of the order. Now that Mr. Mingo was there and the chairperson was there, a judge of 30-odd years standing, none of them can claim that they are in doubt. Not that they should be. They are all represented by counsel, and Justice Claudette Singh is quite experienced in the law. So none of them can claim that they are now unsure, unclear, or in doubt about what the judge meant when she made those orders.
Can you speak to the roles of the persons that will be present to witness Mr. Mungo's tabulation?
Their roles are outlined in the law. They are to observe and they are to take notes. And if you go and read Section 84, there is a chain of events that follow, a chain of procedure that follows to ventilate issues that arise from the process. But we are not getting the process to start properly. And that's where we are. All right? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, let's get started. Speaking on behalf of the process, and they've all said it's a fraudulent process. So that's the next issue. They want to blame the stoppage at GCOM again on the PPP. Yeah, the PPP did not stop the work. It was the last time they were using the SOPs. It was proceeding smoothly, and then it was GCOM who stopped the use of the SOPs, saying, oh, and things were going well, the numbers were collating. Imagine the first nearly 400 boxes. They didn't have any differences when the same night when it was being done by Mr. Mingo calling out. How suddenly there's big variance. But those were being done properly, and there was no problem. When they resumed the final time after the disruption, when they tried to introduce the spreadsheet which had the fictitious numbers and depart from the law 84-1. That was when the disruption took place. But when they resumed, there was no disruption. GCOM then stopped that process. And then the uproar started and commotion started once again when he sought to make the fraudulent declaration, which was reversed by the Chief Justice. So all of these are just fallacies. Now people have to decide who they would believe. Reasonable people. CARICOM issued. CARICOM is not like the West. There is some they're saying, oh, there's some conspiracy between Western countries and the PPP. But I don't think the Commonwealth is a Western. Commonwealth is made up of over 53 countries. You had observers here from Africa, from Asia, from New Zealand, from all parts of the Commonwealth. They all have one view, that the process has been rigged so far. One view. Owen Otter is not alien to us. Owen Otter was a former Prime Minister of the Caribbean. And he said that much. Secondly, CARICOM issued the strongest statement ever. CARICOM believed that what was done was fraudulent too. And CARICOM issued a statement. OAS is made up of countries in our own hemisphere, including CARICOM. And Bruce Golding came out even up to today with a statement talking about the process lacking transparency. You saw the strong statement. And so the entire world, the British government, the Canadian government, Norwegian government, the European Union, and the United States of America have all been very strong on this issue. And guess who is on the other side? One group. Which country in the world you think is saying that this is perfect? Not a single country in the world has stood up and said that what is going on is fair and decent. It is only APNU, a few people in APNU. Others have gone, I think others know what's happening, many of their leaders, and they've gone silent. And a few who are part of the conspiracy have taken over. And they're driving this entire fraudulent process. And the president, as is usual, he claims he professes great respect for the Constitution and rule of law. And you know his history in that relation. We saw it with the appointment of Justice Patterson that had to be reversed by the court, and we saw it with the no confidence motion. And now again he said, oh, I'm allowing the process to work. Let GCOM deal with this. I can't interfere. That's what he's saying. But his minions are busy interfering. That's why I asked, how did Valdo Lawrence's signature get on the official declaration? So when we met, CARICOM came and the heads met all the parties, and they asked me if I was prepared to meet with Mr. Granger. And I said, I'm prepared to meet on, they said, there are two issues they would like resolved between us, not many issues. That we allow the process of verification to go transparently, and that should there be, that CARICOM strongly believes, the head said, every vote must count, and therefore, if you have any disagreements here, there must be, the mandatory recount must be triggered. And we said we're fine with that. So they said, maybe we can meet, and if both parties say this, then the process, that will ease tension and the process will go forward. So when we met, I said, I'm not interested in photo ops because they've been misused before. If we're meeting with this, fine to do that. I don't have a problem. So we met. And they put those positions to Mr. Granger. And what he said is, again repeated, oh, I can't interfere, allow the process to work. And the head said, but you have 3 commissioners who report to you. And PPP has 3 commissioners, the opposition, who report to them. That's the commission. out of 7. Why can't you tell them to agree to this? And so after a lot of, I said, I'm committed to saying that precisely, the two things to the commissioners, the 3 commissioners. Allow the verification process to be completed, and secondly, use this statement, go to a recount if necessary, if there is any dispute. He said he committed to speak to them about ensuring greater transparency. Greater transparency, he wants the process to be transparent. That was his commitment. He was pressed repeatedly to make a commitment in this regard. But he refused to do so, although he could have done it like I did. And all we had to do was to say the 2 major political parties have agreed on this. The 2 major political parties have agreed to use the statement, the recount if necessary. At that morning, yesterday morning, I briefed the 3 commissioners on our side. And he undertook to brief the 3 commissioners on his side. I don't know what he told them because the process deteriorated yesterday. Instead of moving forward to greater transparency, it deteriorated. So he can't be absolved from all of this. Can't be absolved. He claims, GCOM is independent. But the 3 commissioners plus the others who we had expressed fear about earlier, they are now working to rig the elections, and I can't be any less harsh about that. That is precisely what's happening. So I want to make it clear that the People's Progressive Party believe this process is a sham. There is an attempt to push through the declaration. I believe they will refuse the recount because the gold standard is going to the boxes, but the boxes must be secured. Oh, that is one thing that the heads ask, that he contacts GCOM to make sure that the containers containing the boxes are preserved and that there's no tampering with them, because they're now at 5 or 6 locations, and they should be brought into one compound and be sealed and preserved. The heads asked him to do that. The containers are still out there. Fortunately, the parties are looking at this, and some of the observers are still looking at the containers. But anything could happen with those containers. So we make a call once again on the chair of GCOM because this is a concern of everybody, that the boxes must be preserved. In any case, even if you go into tamper with the container, each box has a seal. So if the seals are tampered with, then you know that something is wrong. So that is something that should happen. We believe they will force through the declaration, then refuse the recount, and declare Granger the winner on the basis of these fraudulent results. They just want to hang on. They don't care the risks at which they're putting the country. In a few weeks' time, in fact, maybe next week, we have to go to the ICJ for our case against Venezuela. An illegal government can't represent us there. They're compromising our sovereignty. An illegal government can't represent us there. Secondly, we've already seen the United States of America and many others said that the government will not be legitimate. In fact, the statement coming out from the U.S. State Department yesterday, Mr. Kojak said, didn't say even illegal government. It says regime. And a regime cannot be treated, a de facto regime must not expect the same treatment as a democratically elected government. Regime is different. Not the government, illegal government, because that means you connotate the words that there is some government. It says a de facto regime. Those are the words describing places like Venezuela and other places. regime, and that they must not. Secondly, there's been that people who benefit from electoral fraud, that there could be sanctions. So this is not going to be Granger is putting our country at risk. They think they can slide this through because they have oil money. That too will come under sanction, because we're not going to agree to any use of any resources by an illegal de facto regime. That's what we're going to say from now on, de facto regime, if he proceeds to swear in. There'll be no recognition. I made it clear, no parliament, no participation in parliament, nothing of the sort. Because this is an attempt to steal the country, to steal democracy from us, and freedom from this country. And people have to be prepared to stand up for this once in a lifetime. And this is not about all day long I see on the social media people fighting each other. The enemy is not the people on the ground, because at the end of the day, they have to continue working. They have to go and feed their families. They want stability. They want us to move forward and our people to prosper. So I want to make sure that people, particularly PPP supporters, don't get involved in name callings and responding to any provocation from known provocateurs who are just trying to sow seeds of division. This is not an ethnic issue. This is a fairness issue. This is a freedom issue. That is what we're confronted here with now, and a blatant attempt in front of the world to steal the elections by a corrupt cabal. So there is some hope, and I hope we can all hold the chairman to what she said, the chair, this morning. I gathered the media met her, I was told, and they asked her about the process when she was going into court, and she said, if they cannot be addressed, then why not a recount? So if the chair is saying, if not, the issues can be addressed, why not a recount? We heard that from her herself. So I hope that that doesn't suddenly change. And when asked about timeline, if there is sufficient time for this, because I think that's what APNU wants to run out the clock. That's why some of the delays. You have 15 days to declare the results. So when asked about timeline, she said, yes, box by box. Yeah, the time would work, day and night even. This is our comment earlier today. So we can settle this matter once and for all and know who is trying to pull a fast one, who is trying to steal the elections by opening the boxes, because they have all been sealed. They have the tally sheets in them. I think many have an extra copy of the SOPs. And then if that doesn't settle the issue, you physically count back the ballots. And that's the end of the matter. But I suspect, because the conspiracy is here now, they inflated the numbers, that in spite of that, what is considered a mandatory recount, the final count is a mandatory recount, then in the laws, that too will be denied. And they would say, oh, go to an elections petition. But you know, petitions don't work. We had an election petition the last 5 years, and it was never heard until now. So if they believe, I think that's their game plan. Oh, let's push it all through, get him sworn in, so he's de facto, and then the only place to displace is through an elections petition. That is the game plan. But that would create trouble in this country, and trouble for Guyana and many of our people, and including trouble for many of them. So I want to go back to where I started, that we have conclusive evidence that the numbers called out this morning and numbers that have been made up, where you have in these 4 boxes in Soesdijk, you have more votes in the inflated figures for APNU. APNU vote inflated by 400. that you have more persons voting in Soesdijk than the total number of electors in Soesdijk. Then you add up the number of votes that they got inflated by. That, and we have conclusive evidence of it here. Thank you. Please. Any question? If not, thank you. We just managed to get one for 4 boxes, but because I was rushing, that's why I was a little late. Well, they continue. Tampering, nothing is. Absolutely nothing is. And this just happened before the eyes of the international community and all of the party's representatives. And here is the detail for it. For each of these areas, I'll share with you copies of the SOPs that we uploaded for the 4 boxes, plus the tally sheets. So they didn't give the tally sheets, but the tally sheets are here, signed by the presiding officers, which will support the figures that we just mentioned, that we uploaded. Now, you need to recall that on the 5th of March, 3 days or so after the elections, we uploaded all 889 statements of poll for Region 4. We have subsequently uploaded the tally sheets for Region 4, most of them. We don't have all of them. We're still getting some. But we're the only political party that did this since last Thursday. Now, APNU has been claiming victory, but it doesn't. It too has a copy of the GCOM statements of poll, but it could have easily debunked any number that we uploaded, any one of these SOPs, by releasing its copy, APNU's copy of the SOPs, or uploaded all of them as we did. It has not done so until now, and we're what? Today is the 13th. It's a bad day, Friday the 13th, for the country. And until now, they have not done so. GCOM has not done so. GCOM has had these statements of poll, and after Thursday last, the chain of custody was broken. So for 6 days now, GCOM has had the staff of GCOM, the same ones we believe produced that fraudulent spreadsheet that led to the declaration of the results that the Chief Justice had to vacate in her ruling, reverse in her ruling. The same staff had for 6 days now custody of these SOPs. They unsupervised. In fact, when we talk about if you go back to the press conferences we had, and the observers mentioning They had several statements before the elections. They spoke about the integrity of the chain of custody for the statements of poll, because they should leave the presiding officer's office in a sealed envelope and be open in front of the representatives of the political parties by the RO and then declared. That never happened. They left all of them after they suspended the process, and these have been with GCOM. But why doesn't GCOM upload the same statements of poll that we all got a copy of, and APNU doing the same? It's because it's clear. They're manufacturing figures, and I just showed they made a mess of it because they have just given themselves, or total votes, more people voted at 4 polling places in Tuesday than you have total electors in those polling places. So they got 100 and something percent of the electors voted, which is impossible. This is just unfolding. As the day passes, we'd be able to demonstrate much more. We have several examples of this. So this is clear. I see people making this an ethnic issue, a PVP-PNC issue. This is not a PVP-PNC or an ethnic issue. This is a case of thievery of elections by GCOM staff colluding with APNU. And until now, nobody has been able to explain how Volder Lawrence's signature got on the RO's declaration when it shouldn't be there. That in itself should tell people what is going on. And this was a declaration made by GCOM, not the PPP. They published that Volder Lawrence's signature in the newspapers. They have not given a single explanation for that. We believe today, I think fraud charges were filed, private criminal charges against Volder Lawrence and Mingo. That's been filed in the court because we believe there was collusion to cook up these numbers, and that is why all the confusion, the stop and start at GCOM, they could have done precisely what is being done now 6 days back. Read out from the statements of poll. They could have done this. Why the resistance? Even yesterday, we believe they didn't have enough time, so they came back with a spreadsheet, contrary to the explicit instruction of the Chief Justice ruling. Look at the Chief Justice's ruling. Read paragraph 60 to 63. She said there are 2 mandatory things that have to be done. You have to compile the tabulation from the SOPs, and that it must be a public process in the presence of all of those who attend. Those are mandatory, she said. That is mandatory sections of 84.1. And then at the end, the Chief Justice said, this is what she said: in the present volatile situation which pervades our country, no effort must be spared to assure everyone that the process was fair and impartial. Lingering doubts that hang like a sword of Damocles over the head of the Commission must be removed. Confidence in the electoral process must be restored. This is absolutely necessary if we as a nation are to move forward and strive to heal the wounds that divide us. Let fairness pervade all of our actions at all times. What happened here this morning is not transparent, it's not impartial, and it's not fair. It further clouds the situation, and if there was a cloud or the sword of Damocles hanging over the head of the Commission, it just got even closer to the head of the Commission, because this is thievery at play. The CARICOM Observer Mission made it clear that the Secretariat staff should allow the RO to perform his functions. The Secretariat staff is intruding every minute. We believe they were cooking things up. A few individuals, we've shared their names with the international community, as we've shared the names of people in APNU who we believe are part of the conspiracy. We've shared the names of some police officers who are part of this, many of them, and other officials who are complicit in this plot. So we believe that this is what's happening now. They have hijacked the entire process. And you see this as the result here. Now, let me go through a few other things I've heard in the media, because I've not addressed the media formally for a few days. I've just been giving interviews. I've not had a press conference. But they've been saying, oh, why has the PPP declared results when it broke the MOU that the parties signed? Now, the PPP has been the most restrained party in talking about the results. We have not claimed victory. We put out numbers. We said, let the process work. Return to the verification, a transparent verification, and then a recount of the votes, if necessary, in the boxes, and whoever wins the election, whatever the result is, will abide by that. APNU claimed victory. They put out a fictitious order from GCOM, which had to be reversed by the Chief Justice, which showed victory for APNU. We uploaded all of our statements of poll for Region 4, and we said to people, look at our tabulation, you will see what the number is. If you add that number to what was already declared for the 9 regions, you will see the PPP is in the lead or won the elections. That is what we did. Are we going to just sit around and not release our statements of poll? Statements of poll are corroborating evidence. Over 1 million people visited that website. Not a single one has claimed that any statement of poll for the last several days, from the 5th to the 13th, 18 days, that one is fictitious. Not APNU, not GCOM. Nobody has claimed a single one of the 879 is fictitious. Because most people have taken pictures. And I suspect the pictures from a lot of people will surface for these boxes that they're calling out to, that people took from outside of the polling places. So not just the copies that the parties had, but people went and took pictures. So they will have a lot of evidence to show that the numbers being called out now at GCOM, purporting to be coming from a spreadsheet, from a statement of poll, that they're all fictitious, part of the plot. So I wanted to deal with this issue about declaration, because it seems as though some people, they just have to taint the PPP the same way or treat as equal. APNU has been the one that has held celebration rallies where the president addressed the people. You haven't seen that from the PPP. We uploaded our numbers and we said, you decide, look at the numbers. The second thing I dealt with is, so there have been other questions raised too. Some people are saying that, let me see the other fallacies. PPP claims to win Region 4. We never claim to win Region 4. This is another lie being told that PPP, how could PPP claim to win Region 4 when APNU has so much votes in Georgetown? The PPP's figures that we uploaded showed that APNU won Region 4. They got about 116,000 votes, and we got 80,000 votes. They got a substantial number of votes more than the PPP in Region 4. The figures that GCOM put out, fictitious figures, show they have 136,000, nearly 60,000 votes more than PPP. It's almost impossible. Look at the historic trend. Impossible. And so that is the reality. We never claimed to win Region 4. Well, our figures, look at them, what we uploaded, show that APNU won Region 4 by a substantial number of votes, from 80 to 116. But because